And so I think the best message for parents and kids is get uncomfortable. You know, you hear people say it all the time, be comfortable getting uncomfortable. And if you can have, leave your ego at the door and just go out there and not be afraid to fail, it's important. And one of the quotes I heard when I was young is, a fault does not lie when failing when trying. A fault only lies when failing to try. And it's basically telling you, if you don't try, you failed. But if you try and fail, you still have a chance. And so as long as you learn from it. And so put yourself in those positions. Don't just shy away from them like a lot of kids do nowadays.
That was Jared Aulin, and you are listening to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolin.
Just watch me now.
Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hey there, welcome back to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolin. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, and today we are visiting episode 171 with Jared Aulin. Jared is a local skill development coach out of Kamloops now, and his history is an interesting one, an exciting one. He was a top prospect at the youth age. He was top 10 pick in the WHL Bantam draft, and went on to be an excellent junior player. Was a high pick in the NHL draft. Ended up going second round. Jared talks about how that season itself didn't go the best he wanted for him, and kind of slipped from a first rounder, a potential very high pick, into the second round. But then went on to have a 100-point season in the WHL. Went on to being selected for the World Junior team for Canada, where he was, I believe, tied for second in tournament points. At that level, they lost the gold medal game, ended up winning silver in his journey there with the World Juniors, and then was subsequently traded from the Avalanche, where he originally got drafted, to the Kings. And we discuss, his journey there and what happened. He sustained an injury that kind of knocked him back a little bit, and still ended up playing for a very long time, but he did not have the NHL career that he maybe could have had, or even potentially should have had. And injuries are a big part of the game, and the adversity that goes along with that road to your potential is a very tricky one to navigate. And it was awesome to talk with Jared about his journey, and even how he has a philosophy, let's say now, that is really tied to his own experience. Like, what is important for athletes, what is important from a parent perspective now when you're trying to look after your athlete's best interest. What should you be focused on? What should the athlete be focused on? What makes the difference for athletes, to be their best and to thrive in any environment. And I really enjoy any discussion with Jared. I've got to know him a little bit over the last year or so, and yeah, he's an awesome dude. He's a real stand-up guy. He's not shy to share his opinion, and his opinions are well thought out and very well articulated. So whether it's on the podcast here or away from a recording, it's always nice to have a conversation with Jared. His perspective is very interesting and valuable. So yeah, so this episode, I think you're really going to enjoy. Jared was awesome enough to come and be a coach at one of my UM868s here recently in Vernon. I know the players that he was around really enjoyed having him as a coach, and really giving back to the game. I mean, that's the whole thing here. You're going to hear with Jared loud and clear is that he was able to have an NHL career. Well, I shouldn't say an NHL career, a pro career, getting paid to play this game, which a lot of people kind of underestimate how hard that is to do, and to do it for as long as he did is super valuable. But he has that perspective not quite reaching where he wanted to reach. Some things were in his control, some things were out of his control. And like you'll hear me say time and time again, the better we get at controlling what we can within this game keeps you sane, for one, but it also allows you to have the best chance possible to reach your potential and to reach your goals and dreams. And that's something that Jared speaks about here, loud and clear on the podcast. So without further ado, I will bring you the episode 171 with Jared Aulin. Enjoy. All right, here we are for episode 171 with Jared Aulin. Jared, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's great. We can dive in. Ironically, I didn't even know that you played for the Blazers. At least I didn't remember that you played for the Blazers. It's so funny how many Blazers I've had on this podcast. The arch rival for me through my time in Spokane, and here I am, keep celebrating the alumni from the Blazers. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, it's they at one point in time they were giving a lot of us a chance to have a sniff at the NHL. So it's not surprising you've chatted with a few of them.
Yeah, it was obviously an iconic. I shouldn't say was. I mean that they have a great history there, but that run that they went through there in the 90s was pretty epic. How did maybe we'll start there. I mean, we'll start. You were part of the Bantam draft because you're a little bit younger than me. Like my age group was actually, it was almost my age group that had a full eligibility of all prospects. Myself and two other players were listed at 13 years old for my draft, so I wasn't a part of the draft, but everyone else was, minus two other players. And then the year after would have been a full eligibility. So you would have been part of that. Were you drafted in the draft?
Yeah, I went sixth overall to Kamloops.
Awesome. So where were you playing during that time?
I was playing, actually just moved outside of Calgary, so I was playing for the Airdrie Extreme in the Alberta Major Bantam Hockey League, and thought it was one of the best things for me, actually, after, you move away from friends and think it's going to be harder, but I felt it was one of the best things I did for my minor hockey career.
Oh, awesome. So your draft year, you weren't playing in your local community?
Yeah, we just moved outside of town, so I had to play out in Airdrie, and it was a tough schedule, a lot of travel, and then a very physical, tough and skilled farm boy league. So it was got you ready for the dub back then.
Yeah, 100%. And that was prior to all the CSSHL Academy madness. So it was more of a one-stop shop for like all the best players were playing AAA at that time.
Yeah, it was. And it's funny. A lot of kids ask now about AAA when I played compared to now, and I tell them exactly what you said. Like you had to make the team. It was the best of everybody in your area, and it was very competitive, and the hockey was consistent. There wasn't a lot of teams getting absolutely thumped, so it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I experienced that league as a first-year Bantam. I can't remember, they rolled the ages back at some point, but I think I was 14 there as a first-year Bantam, and I went to Sherwood Park, and yeah, that was a big move for me. I've talked about it a bit on the podcast, but we didn't. It wasn't like we didn't want to stay in Vernon. Like Vernon was great, and we just came off a provincial championship in BC. But I wanted the opportunity at the time to at least try out for the midget team and the local midget team. And they would not allow me to do that. And so we just felt like it wasn't going to be the best spot, like that. Our circuit wasn't quite as good as the Alberta circuit for sure, and kind of wanted to have a bit more of a challenge. And I started making phone calls at 14 years old to some people I didn't even know in Alberta, and the Dubinsky's was who I called. Mike Dubinsky ended up being, I think, a second or third rounder himself to Vancouver, and they came into that Coca-Cola Classic Vernon tournament in Pee Wee, and they always just thumped us. Like they were always just good. So as a kid, I'm like, well, these guys are good. Yeah, I want to go play with these guys, and yeah, as it worked out, I was able to show up at camp and ended up making the team.
and we just had an absolute wagon that year. But that league was unbelievable. Like it was where all the best players were in Alberta. Like you couldn't be anywhere else. I mean, either you made the team or you didn't, and then you were playing double A, which wasn't the worst thing, right? Like now it's like, everyone is so fearful of being double A, but the waters are definitely broader now with where players can play. It's harder to scout. I don't think the leagues in general aren't as good. I don't know. How do you feel about that just in general? Like, I would guess the top version, in my opinion, would be the CSSHL U15 prep league. But even that, there's so much disparity in that league that it's almost like, the top teams have the top players, and then there's such a kind of a watered down effect. I don't know. How do you feel about the state of minor hockey right now?
I think it's going backwards. I agree with you. Like back when we played in that league, it was the best to everybody. I mean, it was strong, hard competition. You had to show up and earn it all the time. And now I feel that minor hockey's kind of become more entitled and more of a business that, things do end up getting watered down. Parents are paying for status. If you can't fill a roster, then they find the players that aren't quite there, but the family can afford it. And it eliminates that competition. Like when we were young, you had to make the team. It wasn't, do you want to play for us? It's, do you want to play for us? You're going to have to try out. And so you learn to earn every opportunity to play at the highest level instead of just have it handed to you. And I think now with the amount of academies we have, plus having varsity programs, like I'm a big believer that if we weeded out varsity programs and allowed minor hockey to stay strong, and then prep would be higher because the kids that are good enough to play prep are going to play prep. And then if we kind of figured out a system where you can affiliate players from different organizations within the areas of those academies, then kind of, I don't know, kind of like your prospects with junior is you have the kids that you are yours, and then you can access them at any time you need. I think that will make minor hockey a lot stronger. It'll make hockey in general a lot stronger, and I think it'll make hockey more affordable for families because a lot of the top talent can't afford a $40,000 hockey season, and so I hope it gets to a point where people focus more on the development, who the coaches are, what the kind of team is, instead of just the facilities. When we were young, the facilities it was who the coaches were, how you're going to develop, and what kind of competition there was within the league. Because we didn't want to pump teams 7-1, 10-1. We wanted everything to be 3-2 or 3 close games where you had to earn every inch.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, I love that. But the other thing is we didn't have a choice, right? Like either you did move somewhere, like physically move, or you just had to play where you were and you landed where you landed. And sometimes it was fair and sometimes it wasn't. But I think like choice is great in some respects. Like I'm not discounting the fact that, hey, player mobility is good, especially from potentially smaller towns, right? Like where you really don't have access to top competition. But like the players of the coast, with AAA and 5 or 6 academies and everyone calling their name all the time and come play here, like I just think it becomes confusing for a lot of people. And again, I don't think that makes it better. We almost, in British Columbia, I feel like we cannibalize everything. Like how can AAA be strong when we have 7 academies, and then you have the varsity program, and then you have the AA program, and then you have the JPHL. It's just like it goes on and on and on. And there's no more players playing now, Jared, than when we played. I actually did the research on that. It's not like there's more players. The players are the same.
And that's the thing. It is the same. And it's I think a lot of it stems back to parents not following the journey. Like they're in a rush to get their kid to the highest level instead of just accepting where their kid's at in the moment and allowing them to grow. That if a kid doesn't make a hockey team, then they go start their own league and start a private hockey club, and then they join that league, and it's all these different things. And there's some really strong minor hockey programs that are private, but in my opinion, they're way too structured. Like I think hockey in general has gone backwards from allowing the kids to have their own creativity and learn how to make their own decisions with coaching help on structure, but not told everything to do, how to do it, when to do it. That we're, instead of developing individual players who know how to play as a team and become connected, we're just developing a bunch of players that can play like robots and don't branch outside of that box. And when you talk about academies, when I talk about parents, there isn't too many parents I know where I ask them where their kid plays, where they don't. If their kid's on a varsity program, they'll just say the academy. But if their kid's on the prep program, they'll say the academy plus prep. So it's like we're raising these kids. I ask kids all the time, "Hey, bud, do you play hockey?" "Yeah." "Where do you play?" Only tier 2. Why only? Like, what's wrong with playing tier 2 in your journey right now? What's wrong with a kid playing varsity in their journey right now? But there's this constant comparison about what other kids are doing, and that we got to do what those kids are doing and chase that. And we all know we all had different career paths, different journeys, different adversities and obstacles and things we had to overcome at different stages in our life. At the end of the day, we all hit it at some point. But why are we putting so much emphasis on kids so young and treating hockey like a business, when the reason we put kids in hockey and sports is to love it, to find a passion, to stay involved in it, to learn life lessons, and hopefully stay out of trouble when they get to those vulnerable years where, they can get caught up and follow the wrong people. And now we're making kids hate it at a younger age because of the pressures. And I think a lot of that has to come with academies and the fear of, not making an academy or not making a AAA program, instead of just, accept it, learn from it, failures, feedback, and grow and make it next year.
Yeah. There's two things that, like the tryout aspect, I think I'd like to dive into a little bit. And even going back to my experience there of going to Sherwood Park, like the Sherwood Park experience for me in Bantam was unlike anything I'd experienced in Vernon, right? Like Vernon, we'd maybe, I don't even remember, to be honest, like maybe a couple teams might try out, maybe a team and two and a half teams might try out. And then you would get either the rep team, and there was no B team then. Like in Vernon, it was either you played rep or you didn't play rep. There was just house or rep. So talk about a big dramatic drop off in that scenario. But going to Sherwood Park, it was like, I don't know, there must have been 4 or 5 teams there, maybe even 6. So I just remember there being so many freaking kids. And I also remember being like, wow, these guys are all good. And my dad still jokes with me about it, but like I remember coming off after the first session, right? Like we've traveled to Sherwood Park, right? We have like a place sort of set up, but by no means did anyone tell me that I was on the team, right? We just thought that I was good, would make it, right? And I remember coming off there and I would go, Dad, I don't know if I'm going to make this team. Like that was for me in my head, just because it was such a new experience and I was, felt the pressure and everything else and everything was good. And the funny part of that story is like I led the league in points that year. So like I was going to make the team, but like for me, it just seemed like it was a very different experience for me. And I did feel the idea of a tryout and having to perform and having to make it. And that there's value in that, right? Like I really kids don't try out for anything anymore, almost. Like it's very rare that you get in an environment. I mean, sometimes at the minor hockey league level, I guess I'll say, because like a AA team or a AAA team, you do have to try out and you can't necessarily commit until the tryouts happen. So that exists, but still not as much. And even at the WHL level now, like you're coming in and you sort of know you're signed, you're on the team, you're not coming to camp as a 16-year-old having to make it. I just think that's such a fail by us, I think, as organizers.
It's true. You ask, like I like to ask kids, what have they done that's hard? Like, what have you had to face in your life outside of, family stuff, but involving sports or school or anything? Like, what have you done that's hard? And they'll say math. And then you say, okay, well, how do you make it easier? And I don't know. Well, you do homework or you ask for help. Like it's, you know what I mean? You can make it easier that way, but they never ever say anything regarding hockey is hard. Like, and so you see very few in our younger generation that when, you see a lot of teams where if they're really good minor hockey teams, they win all the time. And then when they get down by a couple, they lose by a lot. And it's because they've never experienced adversity or anything hard before that, because we just keep handing things to them. And the trial process is here in Kamloops, like we are big on independent evaluators and having coaches line up, but not putting them on a team until we know where their kids land, and trying to, make it as fair as possible and eliminate as many politics as possible. But even in those situations, you still get parents being like, wow, comparing this kid with this kid. Well, my kid scored. Okay, well, that's great. But that has nothing to do with the overall tryout, or, always making it, he's not a good tryout player. Well, so should we just put him on the team this year because he's not a good tryout player? Or is he going to learn if he's cut or she's cut or whatever that, okay, you got to figure out how to be a good tryout player. But if you constantly just say, okay, I get it, it's stressful, they were good last year, here, they're on the team. You know what I mean? Like it's where's that balance between understanding, that a player deserves to be there, but also did they earn it? And it's trying to get that point across to parents in today's sports world that they have to earn it, even if it's in a short window.
Right.
I mean, I get it. It's not a regular season where you can, but some kids do more than others in the summer, and that's fine. I would never tell an 11-year-old kid that you have to do all this to make the A team. But if they choose not to and other kids chose to, then you have to accept where they're at. And it's fine that they didn't play on the A team that year, because when they do want to put in the extra, they will.
Right.
But what's the rush?
Yeah.
So it's I'm not a believer in U11, U13 kids wearing dress clothes to hockey games. I think they're still too young. U15, sure. Now you can wear your collared shirt and your pants. That's how I did it when I was young. But up until U13, you were 100% a kid that played the game, and your parents just questioned your effort and your attitude. And that was it. Like, my parents never brought up NHL. They never brought up how good I was when I was young. They just said, you go be a good teammate and you work hard. And now it's, well, we live in an era where when you were young, if you had success, parents of other kids were happy for you. They're like, go make us proud, Podsy. Like, go make it happen. And the same when I was young. Like, if I made an all-star team, it's a great job, Jared, you deserved it. Go make us proud. Now it's like, well, what about my kid? My kid's better than them.
Right.
This is ridiculous. Like, why is he going? And it's like, can't we just be happy for other kids' accomplishments? And you talked about UMH 68, like, to the players, like, be proud of other people's accomplishments too. That's going to make you better. And unfortunately, it's lacking in the parent world today.
Yeah. I love that you touch on that, the attitude and effort. I've mentioned that in my Facebook group before, like parent Facebook group, well, more than once, but like, if you want to go any deeper than that, I guess it's totally up to you, and it's up to your, maybe how comfortable you feel in your hockey acumen and knowledge, to support, plays and this type of scenario. Yeah. But like, if that can be what a player comes in with, and that is how the parent evaluates their game, I think that you are doing such a great service to your son or daughter, just by having them reflect on those two things. Did you work your ass off, and what was your attitude like? When things didn't go well, and also when other players, were having success, or whatever the case may be. And my goodness, like, a lot of things figure themselves out if those are your standards, and if those are the habits that you're trying to instill at a young age.
Oh yeah. Then accountability naturally sets into the player. Like, those are two things a player can choose. They can choose to be a good kid and have a good attitude and a hard worker, or they can choose not to be. And if they're not, but you continue to support it, then you're enabling it. But if you challenge it, now the kid has to take accountability and own it on their own. And then now we've created harder workers and better people that, whether they make it in hockey or not, they're giving themselves a chance to earn an opportunity in whatever workforce they choose.
Yeah, 100%. You talked about structure earlier and being over-structured. I totally speak to this, and I'm a firm believer in it, that when it is completely programmed for kids and it starts so early, that leaves out the opportunity to feel that you're personally responsible for your own development. And then there's no empowerment in that. And then there's no creativity in that. And there's no, like, let's say extra, because there's so much extra already put in that's the end of the day for them. You know what I mean? And sometimes rightfully so, right? I mean, if you start your day at 6 o'clock and you're on the bus and you're here and you're there and you're doing your workout and you've done your shooting and then you get home, you want a break, you know? And I think, but the juice, and I think you'll agree with me, is the people that want to get better and want to find ways to do that.
Exactly. I think the want, I don't think enough young athletes understand what wanting something means. And I know it took us all time to figure it out, but I don't think even at the higher levels now, like, you know, I watch our Canadian World Junior team and I watch junior hockey, and I see the lack of, you know, aggression and finished checks or the lack of desperation when they're down. Like, I found it extremely disappointing not to see our World Junior team try absolutely everything to win that hockey game. And I'm a big believer that now, and I work, you know, I have a lot of NHL clients and a lot of clients that are close to getting there, but the common difference I see between the two is the guys that are there continue working on their craft. They have that edge, they have that passion, they have zero excuse because they know someone's trying to take their spot. The guys who are getting there now, this young mentality is that, you know, if say I'm a 15-year NHL veteran and we draft a kid to our team who's supposed to be good, he wants me to automatically respect him and be super excited that we have this kid on our team now. Whereas when we were young and, you know, got drafted, we went in there, it didn't matter. I got drafted to Colorado the year they went on to win the Stanley Cup with Ray Bourque, and it didn't matter. I was obviously excited to see Joe Sakic, he was my favorite player, and meet those guys in Forsberg and Waugh and Ray Bourque and all these big name guys. But I respected and appreciated Sean Podine just as much. I was like, man, this is cool. Like, this guy's been in the NHL a long time. And I would, you know, chat with him. And then I wanted to prove why I was drafted, not just like, I'm here, should be happy I'm here. And I see that mentality in these young guys now, instead of, you know, you take a Macklin Celebrini, who he shows up and he's like, watch me. And he's humble, and he's hardworking, and look at the season he's having. And then you've seen some other guys step in where they're like, I'm going to be the big dog, but I'm not going to work as hard as a Macklin Celebrini. And then guys are like, what's going on here? And then suddenly it trickles back, and now they have to figure it out. And some have, but it's the work doesn't stop just because you got drafted. And I think there is that mindset that, you know, respect is just given, not earned, and where we were raised, earned, not given. So it's just finding that desire and that drive and understanding the difference between motivation and drive, and that it can't be a temporary thing. You got to do it all the time. And it's that consistency that I think lacks in the young people to prove their want. And so whenever I coach, I always ask kids, how many of you want to go as far as you can? And they all put up their hand. I never say NHL because I already know that's the dream, but I want them to understand that making $1 playing hockey is great. But I always say, how many of you want to play as long as you can? They all put their hand up. And so I'm more of an accountability-based coach than a fear-based coach. So if they all put their hand up and they're not back-checking, I can go to that kid and say, hey, you said you wanted to play as long as you can. And that's not the effort that's going to get there either. You got to work on both sides of the puck. Then you give them a chance, and if they don't do it, obviously pull them back for a little bit to reflect on it, and then you put them back out there. But now it's just all about winning, that the coaches just put the best players out there even when they're not working hard.
Yeah. I like that accountability versus fear. I think that's the biggest motivator, like for me, and even from the mindset side that I, you know, obviously coach and love to chat about is what is driving the player, right? And define that thing that drives them, and then teach them how they can be accountable to that, right? Like some of these things, like I think we just feel that they're supposed to know or that they have, but I think like the environment they've been raised in, whether that's in the four walls of their own house or whether it trickles down to school or whatever, like I think that there's been less emphasis on this generation with accountability and how to connect those dots. So I love that you do that, because I try my best to do that as well. Like give them a blueprint for what they want. And then they can have their own track record and their own accountability session on whether they're doing it or not.
And
right?
then
Yeah,
understand
and
their expectations. They know what you're asking, and they've told you what they want, and now you just piece it all together and challenge them on it.
mm-hmm. And that's when I'm getting back into the structure, like for parents that, sometimes you have kids that are super keen, right? Like really keen, and they want to do all the extra ice, and they're asking for it, and they want to find it, and like that's when it's hard as a parent to say no, especially in different times of the year. Where I think we're both believers. We talked about at the UMH 68, of having space and time, to get away from the game, and sometimes it's hard to say no as a parent. But for any parent out there where your kid isn't asking for it, it should be way easier for you to make that decision of not getting them and finding them the things to put them in. Because that is where I think the real juice happens, like of that whole idea of like, now there's room for them to be bored, for them to be interested, creative potentially. How am I going to get better? What am I going to do in my spare time? And that's the stuff that fuels it for the long term. Like that's the longevity cue right there, that you have to have that intrinsic motivation and that want. When your schedule's always filled up by somebody else, there's nothing left for you to do or to think about. You just go, and sometimes you'll even take those opportunities for granted because they're right there and we're not grateful for them, and maybe we're not giving our best effort. So I don't know, just the message to parents like listening is like, try and find that balance. I think leaving space for players to be interested, to find spots that they're going to do it without somebody watching them or blowing a whistle or telling them how to do it, investigating their own hockey camps or schools. Where do they want to go? Like what interests them? I'll speak to Coeur d'Alene because I was just in Coeur d'Alene this year, and the schedule is awesome because Friday there's no school on Friday, and so sometimes if we're in town there will be a practice, and sometimes there won't be on that Friday. But the gym's open, so like they have access to gym, and the gym is like right there, like where they can shoot, where they can stick handle, right beside the school. And there is breaks in the day where you might have a break, or you have some time after lunch, or maybe you're waiting for 30 minutes for practice. And it opens up some opportunities for these guys to do what they feel they need to do for them, right? Because we all know that team workout is fantastic, and it's awesome to have the opportunity to do that. But that's a holistic program for everybody on the team, right? Like Johnny might not need to do bench press today, right? Like maybe you should be doing plyometrics, every day, right? Maybe you should be doing sprints. And so, yeah, but if you don't have time to do that, it takes that power away from them. So I just love that environment there. I know that we had a lot of kids like finding that extra time and investing in themselves. And of course, not all kids do it because not all kids are wired that way, right? But those that can, it's awesome.
And I think the reason why you don't see as much street hockey anymore, is because it's too constant, and it's like if you eat your favorite meal every day, eventually it's not your favorite. And so if you're doing too much hockey, the real creative moments where kids can just be themselves and play hockey is on the street. Like especially here in BC where it doesn't get cold enough to have long-term outdoor rinks, but I find it very rare to see kids outside. I see them shoot pucks, but I never see them just play. And, when we were young, your parents had to beg you to come inside to have lunch or dinner just to get you away from playing street hockey. And so when kids do miss it, they'll show you. They'll either ask, or they'll pick up their stick and shoot pucks, or they'll go play street hockey. And I do think, like you said, when they investigate their own camps and academies and things they want to go to, then if your kid does want to go to academy and you're willing to invest the money, then have them write a letter or something as to why they want to go. And then they have to reflect on that. Like, I don't think enough kids understand the value of money and most of all the value of the time the parents put in to make the money to pay for these opportunities. So there's nothing wrong with it, with seeing if the kid understands exactly why they want to go and do this and what they're going to put into it. And then that's kind of their way of signing a contract to themselves.
Yeah, I love that. Accountability again. It's perfect.
This episode is brought to you by BioSteel. Stay hydrated and connected with the BioSteel Teams app, your all-in-one team management tool for schedules, scores, standings, game streaming, and team updates. It's fast, free, and built for athletes and families. Teams can also score an exclusive BioSteel starter kit with water bottles, hydration packets, and towels to rep their squad. Download the BioSteel Teams app now on the App Store or Google Play and stay in the know all tournament long. Thank you to BioSteel for being a main sponsor of the UMH 68 and affiliating with Up My Hockey. You make the UMH 68 a better place. Thank you, BioSteel. Now let's get back to the episode with Jared Aulin.
How about let's go back to you. So Blazers drafted 6 overall. Obviously, placing you in a very elite company there with being a top 10 selection, and you played as a 16-year-old. What was that like for you getting there? Your camp. If there's anything you remember from that, did you feel that you were a lock to be there? Like what type of communication was there? Let's hear your experience with that.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure. I remember being a draft pick and actually playing in the Kibit tournament. So a lot of people came to watch, and we ended up winning the tournament. And I led the tournament points, had a really good tournament. And then all of a sudden you get to rookie camp and it's all cameras and interviews. And it's always everybody want to have, their moment to talk to you and put you on the news and all that stuff. And my parents grew up here in Kamloops, so I had family out here. So there was a lot of pressure, and I didn't know if I was going to make the team. I knew I had to earn it. Played really well, earned my way onto the team, and the biggest moment for me then is I was 155 pounds, 160 pounds in an era where it was a lot of big guys. And I remember having a practice, and Robin Regier was on my team, and I asked one of the guys, I just asked why no one tries to beat him wide. They're like, I don't know. That's a good question. Obviously playing with me a little bit. And so I was like, it was a one-on-one, and then you just had to back check all the way, not check the players, but back check all the way back to your end, just as kind of a hidden bag skate. And so I went one-on-one against Regier and tried to beat him wide, and he absolutely hammered me, knocked the wind right out of me. And I remember finishing the rep and then skating all the way back with no wind, got to the corner, and I was just like trying to find air. And my teammate looks at me and goes, yeah, we call it the tunnel of death. But it was just it was a wake-up call on, like, I'm not playing against guys my age anymore. Like, these guys are big guys, and some of them are NHL draft picks already, and the compete was different then. Like, a battle practice was a battle. Like, there was zero taking it easy on your teammate. It was Robin Regier would break his stick on your back, and we had tough team, and there was guys getting into it in practice, and but when it came to games, and I think that glues you together a little bit more, is when you have that extra compete in practice and the willingness to show your buddy that I'll go to war, because then in a game, they're there for you in the same capacity. And so that was the big thing for me. Like, obviously that Airdrie Extreme days, it was physical, there were line brawls and things like that, but it was your age group. And so coming into where, you might have been the best at your age group in minor hockey, now you got to prove that you're one of the best players in the league, and start that young, and then progress from there, and then stay consistent. And now you're a target in an era where, target men guys were not just trying to finish a check, but they're trying to hurt you. And so playing through that side of, I don't care who you are, when you're a skilled guy and you got guys wanting to hurt you, there's fear. And so you have to be cautious and aware. And I think, being able to put up numbers as well as, protect yourself, and know that you had teammates that wanted to protect you, but also that you would protect your teammates. Like, that was the rule of hockey back then. It didn't matter if you were skilled or not, you stood up for each other. And so there was that camaraderie, and there was no egos in that sense. Everybody felt as an equal because you treated everybody the same and stuck up for everybody the same. And so it was just, it was thrilling. It was exciting. It was just another, step towards your goal, and a lot of learning lessons. And, I didn't get a ton of ice time as a 16-year-old, but when I, they wanted to teach you things where they'd scratch you for a game just to see how you'd react. And so you had, like I said earlier, you had to earn every inch, and I'm happy that I was a part of that era where nothing was given for free. And, I wish it wasn't as physical in the sense of being targeted like that. I wish guys just played you hard not to hurt you. But again, I learned a lot from it, and loved my time, wearing the Blazer B.
Yeah. Was that hard as a 16-year-old to to leave home and to be there and all the, everything else that goes along with that?
Yeah, for me, it wasn't as difficult because Kamloops, I was fortunate enough they allowed me to live with my grandma. So I had family here, like I said, with my aunts and uncles and grandparents. But it's always, it's still not your parents when you're going through things. And, when you're facing adversity, or a phone call over the phone when you're in tears and you don't have the hug of your parents, or just, go for a walk or that kind of thing, I think impacts people. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that with sending 13-year-olds away for academies. Like it's the stuff they don't think about. And I think that's important, is when a kid's at home, you can see if they're okay. Over the phone, you might hear it in their voice, but you still don't know. So it's in my opinion, 16 felt young. 13's really young. So it's just important to navigate the pros and cons with anything you're doing. And one of the big reasons I think I was lucky to go to Kamloops is the teams ahead in the draft that we spoke to. My parents said they'd prefer me to go to Kamloops because there's family there. So I got lucky that way.
Oh, good. Yeah. I mean, you talking about the era, and I won't dwell on it more, just for us to go back in the time warp. Like, it was tough. Like, it was really tough, and you recognize it at the time, but not really. Like, now I recognize it more. So looking back, because back when you could cross check, when slashes happened and they weren't called, like, to go to the dirty areas, and you mentioned being a skill guy. Like, to score goals was hard, like it was hard, like if you had a shot to score from the perimeter, great. You know what I mean? But we all know how often those shots from the perimeter go in. So, like, the majority of the time you're having to get to a dirty area, and the dirty area was really freaking dirty. So whether you fought or not, like, you had to be willing to put your body definitely on the line and know that you might leave with a bruise, like, more often than not. And I freaking love that, like, looking back on it now, like, I really do. Like, as far as, like, from a personal point of pride, self-esteem, like, talk about doing hard things, like, that's hard, that's hard. And it was drilled into us. I mean, it happened in practice for sure. Like, it was hard in practice. You're going against older guys. It was hard. And there was more liberties sometimes in practice than in the games, because no one's calling penalties. So like, you went through the ringer, and you continue to go through the ringer, and you can continue to check your courage at the door, and are you willing to show up? Are you willing to do it consistently? And anyways, obviously none of us did it all the time consistently, but consistent enough to get paid for it and to have a job, and and to be successful. So anyways, I just kind of like that, and I think a bit of that is, well, not a bit, I know it's missing today, and it kind of pisses me off that the kids can't really have the opportunity to feel that, and to have that value.
I think, like, I was a very creative player. When it was frowned upon, like, I was doing things not to be arrogant, but trying to turn something out of nothing because it worked. And if a lot of people say I was born 10, 15 years too early, but I think that creativity came from the dirty hockey. Like, I had to find ways to make plays, knowing if I do this, okay, now I got to protect myself because this guy's coming, and I think so. Decision making and creating separation and all that stuff in our era, I mean, outside of the training they have today for being explosive and stuff, is benefited the game, because today I find it's not. Kids they don't have that sense of urgency to make a play or get, like, escape and move their feet, or shoulder check, scan the ice, find option A, B, and C. They see one option and that's it. Whereas we had to see every option, because one, we knew we were getting hit. And two, if we turned the puck over, we're probably getting benched. So you had to protect yourself and make the right plays. Whereas today, it's not as physical, and the kids don't worry as much. So now it's, okay, I'll get the puck, then I'll look to see if anything's open, and then I'll turn my head or whatever. And it's like,
right, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, that is a good point. I never really actually thought of it that way, that there is a little bit more time potentially to do that, to collect the puck, to understand, to maybe to look and scan. The one that drives me nuts is like the lack of people that are willing to go to the net right now. Like that is such a lost art. Like drive the far post, like what, it can be a dirty area, but not even as much anymore. Like very rarely does really huge contact happen there anymore. And what a great way to score goals, right? And to make yourself be noticed. But
Zach Hyman's a problem. He says he got 50 McDavid, but the only other line mate McDavid's had that's gotten, I think, over 25 goals or 30 goals is Draisaitl. So you have to be willing to pay that price, and Hyman gets rewarded. So
you played as a 16-year-old. Your 17-year-old was your draft year. It looks like had a good year. I don't know how you viewed it. Good enough to go 47th overall or whatever it was, which is awesome. What was that experience like? Because I know, for me personally, I never really felt pressure like trying out at Penticton at 15 years old and playing in that league. And, I never really felt it until the draft year, like when I knew NHL scouts were there and I knew that I could read about myself in the Hockey News and, you saw the boards and all the rest of it. Like that was the first year where it came a bit of a business, I guess, for me. Agents were talking to me then and flying me around and, whatever the case may be. So to me, that was different. Like my draft year was a different year, and I think I didn't handle it the best that I could. I was also dealing with a ton of coach stuff in Spokane at the time, so there was that on top of it, and parent pressure with that. So that was my first year of like dealing with it all, kind of. Like how was it for you in your draft year?
Same for me, believe it or not. Like it wasn't a year where I was happy to go 47th overall. I was ranked third in the world at the start of the year. I had 23 points in my first 9 games in the WHL to lead the league in points, and we didn't have any toughness, and so I was getting abused every game. And eventually, it got to where I had an avulsion fracture in my foot and tore all the ligaments from getting hit, and my foot got caught in the crease of the boards. And my coach made me play with it. He gave me 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, or something, and then forced me to play with it. No, I can't say forced, but told me I had to play. So in between, they taped it like a cast, so I couldn't move it, and then they'd cut it off in between periods, and then tape it like a cast again, and then cut it off in between periods to get the blood flow. So I went from 23 points in 9 games and finished the season with 55 points in 57 games. And the coach didn't want me talking to NHL scouts or agents during the season because he felt it was a distraction to the team. And it was frustrating for me because I was always a team guy. I never had a bad attitude. I was always kind. My parents always raised me to be Jared Aulin first, a kind kid with a good attitude. And so I had a coach that competed with me instead of coached me. And it was extremely frustrating. And instead of, in hindsight, I probably should have opted out of the draft that year and waited till I was healthy. But again, you think, you still proved enough at the start of the year that you'll go higher. And so the only thing that wasn't frustrating in that year was Colorado drafting me. They met with me before the draft, said they wanted to pick me in the first round, but they're afraid I'm not going to survive junior just because of the abuse I was taking. And Kelowna Rockets at that time took a guy who quit hockey and was backpacking. They told him to come back just to fight me every time we played them. So it was, you're a target. Like it was abusive hockey, and you had to tough it out. And so I went to Colorado and had a really good rookie camp. Then went to main camp. Bob Hartley was there. He was really hard on me the one day. He didn't know I was actually sick. He thought I was a young and entitled kid, I think, that was faking it during the bag skate. But the day before, I had talked to the trainers not knowing there was a bag skate the next day, that I wasn't feeling good at all. And then he actually ended up, so he torched me on the ice. And then Bob Hartley was famous for a 50-minute bag skate with no pucks, where you do 15 laps one way. Mountain climbers, if you don't do the mountain climber under 42 seconds the first time, or whatever, 45 seconds the first time, you have to do it again. And the second time you do it, if it's not under 47 seconds, then you have to do it again. And he made one guy go 7 times. But I remember him just lacing into me, but facing the crowd so that they didn't know that he was attacking me. Like, not attacking me where it was anything. I was like, whoa, it was hard. Yeah. It wasn't on because he didn't know that I was actually sick, and until he saw the vitals on my blood and stuff from the doctors, and he ended up apologizing to me. But, I was the last cut as an 18-year-old in Colorado, and then they wanted to call me up halfway through the season because they had a bunch of injuries from Kamloops, but my agent at the time said no unless they guaranteed me 10 games. So if I could do anything over in my life, it would be that, because for me it was just getting the opportunity. I wish I knew better, but you hire somebody to look out for you. But to go there, and you can't put a dollar sign on the knowledge, and just from learning from them and watching them, from the likes of the players on that team that year, because there's 5 or 6 guys that are legends, and but it didn't work out that way, and ended up Colorado traded me to LA, not where they traded me, but LA got to choose the player they wanted in the Rob Blake trade. So went to LA from there. But then my first day in LA, found out that the 2 scouts that I met with throughout the course of my time in Kamloops before they picked me died in 9/11. So got there with no scouts in my corner, and then had to prove myself again. And went through a lot of adversity. The hardest part was not that Ace and Mark passed away, but being in a position again where the guys who know you, are now watching over you instead of there with you. And so your heart hurts for them, but you're also there to try and make them proud and just hope you get the same opportunity everybody else was getting. But then you had to earn it again. So it was
right.
It was a lot of hard, a lot of adversity, but you had to have the resilience, and then kind of move forward from there.
Yeah, it's rarely fair, is it? it's there's always something, and I find that generally, like the something is where the juice is, if we can get through it. I know, like that draft, my draft scenario was like, I don't even know if at the end of the day I handled it right, like by staying in Spokane and all the things that happened. A lot of people thought I should have opted out or asked for a trade or done whatever. I chose to stay and tried to make it work, and because it was on my terms and something that I wanted to do and something that I dealt with, like no one can take that away from me, right? Like, I don't know if it was right from a hockey side, but it was right from a personal side, and I think that really built my resolve that fuck, I can handle anything. Like I can handle it, and yeah, so I don't know, like, it's kind of crazy. The adversity kicks you around. It's tough. But yeah, hopefully we're better for it.
This episode is also brought to you by Elite Prospects, a UMH 68 tournament sponsor, sponsoring stats and all-star awards for UMH 68 participants. Elite Prospects is the gateway to hockey. Online since 1999, EliteProspects.com is the leading statistical resource in the game, serving over 1 million unique visitors every week. For players, EP is your online showcase, highlighting your achievements and helping you get noticed by scouts, coaches, and schools at every level. For serious fans, EP Rinkside delivers deep insight on players worldwide through written features, video breakdowns, interviews, and more. We are definitely proud to partner with Elite Prospects for tournament stats and all-star awards at the UMH 68. And it was awesome this last UMH 68. They actually had a scout, Elite Prospect scout, came to the event, did written reports on a majority of our players there, excuse me, at the event. Super special for players to go afterwards and read their scouting reports, see what an Elite Prospects scout has to say about them, and that will live on their Elite Prospects profile forever. So really exciting to have Elite Prospects involved with Up My Hockey in the UMH 68, a valuable partner for us, and we couldn't thank Elite Prospects more for being a part of Up My Hockey in the UMH 68. Now let's get back to the podcast with Jared Aulin.
I want to shift to the World Junior, because it's super cool that you were there, one, and also super cool that you had a great tournament and looks like you were second in the tournament in points. So let's talk about that selection process and playing for your country.
Yeah, that was wild, because the year before I was told that if I had 50 points by Christmas, then there's no way they wouldn't ask me to try out for World Juniors, and I had 52 points and didn't get the invite, and was pretty disappointed. So when I did get the invite, I wanted to prove myself. And I remember, Mark Hapshide coached me when I was 16, and then he was the assistant coach there, and we had one more inter-squad game left, and I was having a really good camp and, selling myself as a person off the ice and how I played the game on the ice. And then I remember him coming up to me and saying, "Hey, they got you on the bubble right now. Like you have to have a game." And I was thinking, like, really? I'm on the bubble right now? Like, I'm doing really well out here. And so I ended up going out there. I had 6 points. I got 2 goals and 4 assists, I think, in that inter-squad game, and it was televised. So I earned my spot on the team. And then once you get to World Juniors, I remember the guys that played the year before, Jarrett Stoll, and he's like, "Guys, we're doing a team building thing, and I'm telling you, everybody's going to be in tears." And we're like, "What? A bunch of hockey players in tears?" And so we went, and the way they did it was they had a flag at the front of the room, and then each player had to go up and designate the tournament to someone and sign their names on the flag and then sign underneath it. And I remember, Brian Sotheby, his brother has epilepsy, so he wanted to trade spots with him just for a day. And so the tears are going for that because he's talking about their relationship. And Scotty Upshaw had a young cousin who was fighting cancer. There were all these different things. And for me, the hardest part for me was that my parents, because my dad did well, but never gave us a silver spoon treatment, but everything was about my parents not being supportive, but only being there because they have money. So if they came to watch me in Kamloops, it was because they have money. It wasn't to support their kid. And even the Hockey News in the top 60 rankings said, first sentence was the son of a wealthy businessman. And so for me, I got emotional because my thing was that my parents were the most supportive people on the planet, but weren't looked at as being supportive, but just as arrogant. My mom never dressed. They never wore fancy stuff. You would never tell that I came from a money background unless you saw the house and my dad's dream car that he had forever. And so I got super emotional with that. And the head scout at the time came up to me and he apologized and said, "I'm sorry, you should have been here last year." He's like, "But I did think that you were silver spoon." And he's like, "That was a huge eye opener for me. I'm glad I've gotten to know you as a person." And so what you take from that is that my parents never got involved with my hockey. They never talked to my coaches. They never interfered with anything, just hands off all the time. But because there's always jealousy in the world, and I think there was jealousy of my dad's success, that then toxic parents talk and spew whatever they want to spew. And then instead of people looking into it to themselves, they just make their assumptions. And then, it ends up affecting me. And my dad to this day feels bad, but he didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing my dad did wrong.
Right.
And so the World Junior experience and obviously having that conversation was probably the highlight of my career. We came up short in the gold medal game. We were up 3-1 against Russia, lost 5-4, but just the camaraderie of the team. We had a guy named Colin Robinson who actually is the old trainer for the Blazers, but he would do a dance off. He'd call it the jump around. And so he'd bring a stuffed animal that represented every country, and he'd beat the wheels off these stuffed animals, and then he'd pretend to break dance, and he'd have more injuries than anything, like get stitches and stuff. He ran right through a door, and but he'd get the boys all fired up, and how quickly we came together, and then how quickly, it was the era of no social media. So they had email accounts for us that we didn't get to access, but they would print off any positive messages we were getting from fans. And then we'd go for breakfast and read these positive, supportive messages from fans. And then we'd go out there and play. And it was just unbelievable to know that you're representing your country and that, even to this day, everybody watches. And to have success individually and even winning a silver medal is a huge accomplishment. Still stings that you didn't finish it, but I was proud of every guy that I played with that went on to have a career, whether it was for 1 game, 2 games, or 500 plus games. And I think that's the biggest thing is you're now on an international stage with the best players in the world for your age group, and you're rooting for each other. When you separate, you continue those bonds when you're playing against each other, and you want to see the success of each other, but you still have that inner competition too. So it was an unreal moment. And I went through some boxes here the other day that I got from my parents' house, and I got a jersey signed by the whole team, and then on the front it's to Ted and Pat, my parents, from your friend Wayne Gretzky, and like, so it's just it's those moments, and those are the things, you know, that you'll always remember is not just the hockey and how great it was, but the relationships you build and the memories you made just from being in something so huge.
Yeah. Yeah, it is big, and I've said that on the show. Like I'm one of those guys too. Like you, that didn't. Well, I guess you haven't said that. We're going to get to your NHL career, but like I thought it was going to be more than it ended up being. Right, a pro career, and it turned out that, you know, playing for your country in the World Junior Championships, and, you know, and in our case we were able to beat Sweden in the gold medal game. Like, by far the best thing that happened to me, you know, like super special, right? Like so special, and so thankful and so grateful that was able to happen. And for a lot of guys, even guys that go on to the NHL and play their 500 games, right? If they don't win a Stanley Cup, like they look back on that moment as being like, that's my moment, you know, like that was my moment. Like that was such a great experience. So that's awesome that you're able to see that and be a part of it. There is nothing, I guess the World Junior, I mean, I guess the Olympics would be the next level, right? Like of doing for your country again, like those guys that get to play for that at the NHL level what I would assume would be a frickin' amazing feeling, or a World Cup or something like that. But yeah, for us of that age group, it was pretty special. Yeah, and I smile every time I think about it. Such a great group of guys, and such a ton of fun being around that. With that, so that was your 19-year-old year, right? So then you end up going to. Did you start in Manchester then as a pro? Like when you got traded to LA, is that where you started? In LA.
Yeah. So I obviously did the exhibition games, and then went down to Manchester to start the season, and then kind of got called up from there, and was then kind of up and down from East Coast or West Coast, East Coast, the long travel, but it was worth it.
Right. Yeah. So and we talked about Andy. So Andy Murray was the coach then when you were there?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, Jared and I shared that. So I was in LA a couple seasons earlier. I'm not even really sure. I think it may have been 2000, 2001. I was there after I got traded, and Larry Robinson got fired. When I first got there, Larry Robinson was there, and then Larry Robinson got fired, and then Andy Murray came in for my training camp. So I got to experience Andy at that training camp, and then they called me up for playoffs at the end of that year, and I was there for the playoff run, and I think 3 games maybe that year they had me up for. So I experienced Andy Murray. He didn't like me very much, so that usually turns around that you don't like him very much. How was your experience with Andy?
It was it's like I don't know if he liked me or didn't like me. So it was you know, there was a time he told me, I got to introduce you to my niece, and then there's times where, you know, he didn't treat me like he wanted me to meet his niece. So it was one of those situations where you needed to lean on the veteran guys. He was really hard on the rookies. So if a veteran was to get in trouble, it would go through the rookie. Like I'd get yelled at, and then someone would come up to me and be like, "He's not talking to you. He's trying to get the message to Paul Fianallison or whatever." And but it was tough because I mean, I was a skilled guy who should have been playing with skilled players, and no disrespect to my line mates, they were great guys and brought a lot to the team for their roles, but both of them were tough guys, and you know, you're expected to produce, and you're getting 6 minutes ice time with tough guys, and then I think the first game I got over 13 minutes of ice time. I had 2 goals and an assist, and proved like, you know, just give me a chance. And I think that's the hardest part about, you know, you're excited to get there, but like I remember my first NHL game against St. Louis, my first shift, I walked the defenseman wide. They turned, buried me from behind, but before I got hit from behind, I dropped it back to Matthew Schneider, who took a one-timer and hit the crossbar. So I almost had an assist, plus I drew a penalty, but then I never saw the shift again after that. And so then you sit there, and I mean, maybe I'm different than most, but I'm not a guy that chases the paycheck. I'm the guy that chases the ice time. Like I want to play. Like the whole purpose of wanting to be a hockey player is to play the game, not just a few minutes. And so I was super appreciative, and I'm glad I got to live out my dream. I'm upset it got cut short because of an injury, but I think, at some point I probably would have earned the more minutes. But it's nice to see the young guys nowadays getting put in opportunities where they expect them to play and give them that chance to thrive instead of, you're going to start here. We're going to give you very limited minutes, but we want you to keep your confidence up because we expect you to play here the next year. And it's like, well, why don't you see if I can play at that level right now? And if I can't, then send me down for development and then bring me back up instead of keeping me around just to play 6 minutes. Right. So it sounds terrible, but it's not that I don't appreciate my time in the NHL. I'm super thankful. I'm super, grateful that I scored at that level, and my kids got my jerseys hanging in their rooms, and there's obviously frustration in the fact that I did have an injury and my NHL career got cut short, but I just wish that the time I did have, I was given more of an opportunity to prove what I am actually capable of doing at the highest level.
Yeah, that's definitely hard, and I do agree with you. They're doing more of that. I mean, if you're a scoring right winger, and they want you to be a scoring right winger, then they put you in a situation where you could potentially be that in the NHL instead of, to your point, being on the fourth line with 6 minutes and then getting sent down and they tell you, well, you didn't produce. That was the one that I got, and it was like, well, not sure how that's possible, to be honest. I don't think the guys I was playing with produced either. So, should they be coming down too? But yeah, I mean, they are doing more of that. So where did you get injured? Was it in Manchester or in LA?
No, so it was in LA after my rookie season. I had a good rookie season in Manchester. I played in the All-Star game as a rookie and averaged a point per game. And then, they were saying they wanted me to be the second line center the next year in LA. But they wanted, so Mike Camilleri and myself were the only ones, and Jeff Tafe with Phoenix at the time. The Kings made myself and Camilleri play in the rookie tournament, even though we already played pro. And it was because Anaheim had really good prospects, or Anaheim made the Stanley Cup final the year before, so LA wanted to prove that they had better prospects. And so they put us in this rookie tournament, and we were just targets. Like Shane O'Brien ended up jumping me and mid-fight in my head, because I knew how to fight. Like, I grew up boxing and kickboxing, and I was like, what am I doing? What if I break my hand? Like, I'm an offense guy. Like, I need this. So I instead of continuing to fight, I tried to flip him. And when I went to flip him, he hit the boards. And so when I stepped back to try and do it again, I stepped on my hockey stick. And so my shoulder was fully extended out like this. And then he fell on me. And so my shoulder popped out. And so to this day, like, if I try and do this, like, that's as far as my shoulder goes. And I can't raise it over my head. And it was an unfortunate situation where, I have zero mobility pretty much in that, like, shoulder. And at the time, you think you're going to come back and be fine. And, I was still able to produce and play well, but then I was getting minutes taken away in the minors, because I'm a big believer that they didn't want me doing well to pay someone that's young and have one arm. So instead of being honest, they started to pull back my minutes and not play me as often. And then, then you start to lose your confidence and beat yourself up and question if you're still a really good player. And, and so went through that, and then, tried to continue playing and just felt I wasn't being given the opportunity I deserved anymore. And, part of it's on me too. I lost confidence and probably wasn't doing what I was capable of. But when there's no communication or transparency or any willingness to try and help you, it gets frustrating. And so I didn't like hockey anymore and decided I was done, and went home, and, ended up getting a offer to go to University of Calgary. But the only way I could get into school for free or into school in general, was if I played for the team. And so I had to sit out half the season and ended up playing for the team. And found the love for the game again and had a coach that, just wanted me to play. And so then made a comeback from there. But it's injuries are part of the game, and it sucks that it took away what potentially could have been, like, I'm not saying it would have been, but potentially could have been a long NHL career. But the physical damage was the easy part. It was the mental side of the game where it was, the hardest. And so I'm very thankful that my parents did raise me to be me first, and that I always, knew there was value in me, not just as a hockey player, which I think is a problem in today's world. Is too many people are raising their kids to be hockey players and building them social media platforms as hockey players and don't realize the damage it can do. Because even for me as a guy who was as highly skilled and, breaking records growing up and doing all that stuff, once the game was taken from me from an injury, it was still hard. I didn't turn to booze. I didn't turn to drugs because I knew I had a trustworthy support system. But if I wasn't raised to be me first, who knows? Would I have turned to booze? Would I have become suicidal? Would I have, because it's extremely difficult when you're known to be good at something your whole life and then suddenly you can't do it. And so to have that, family support that, no, you're still Jared Aulin, you still bring this, and this, you're still capable of all these things. You achieved your dream, you made it. This is a tough road, but you're fine. As opposed to your little Johnny, the hockey player. Yeah, the hockey player. Now you're not. What happens? And so that's why I got involved in coaching and minor hockey world. And obviously I'm lucky to work with the NHL players, but I can relate to all these situations and kind of put people in their place when they don't understand the pressure they're putting on a kid that didn't ask for it. So injuries are part of the game, but that mental side is the hardest. And so it's, what you're doing with your mindset and anybody else in that world. Like my business is skills coaching. You guys are way more valuable than I am. And it's not a knock at what I do. I think I'm really good at what I do, but I've been there. I can teach skills. I don't know if I can get every kid that's, had a damaged mindset from a lot of the stuff that their situations are put into nowadays, and not knowing what hard is and how to deal with that stuff can get through. And so you want parents to recognize they're your kids. It's who they are first. It's not what they do. And so I think for me, that was the biggest takeaway. And I overcame it. I'm thankful I'm not a guy that turns to booze or drugs and dark thoughts, but to those that do, like, it's a concern. And that's why I raised this, is just because, you worry about every kid and everybody and don't want them to think they're any less of themselves just because they didn't make it at all, or make it for as long as they thought they could.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, obviously it's maybe not the NHL. It's like, for some kids, maybe it's not making that prep team that we were talking about, or it's not whatever, right? Like that this is now I'm less worthy. I'm less than, which isn't the idea. Like, one of the things that I totally try and get kids to really invest in, and my kids included, is like, what else do you like? Yeah. And like, really, what else do you like? Like, have something, because when hockey's just it, even from a thing that, from a development standpoint, like if you're not now all of a sudden playing well, and that's where all your value is around, that's the only thing that you're focused on, it's like, how doesn't that affect you? But if you do love guitar, or you love music, or you love fishing, or whatever the thing is, you love golf, like, go do that. I'm like, everyone needs something that they have that, that feels like an escape, or even like they have value in it, like whatever the case may be. Because when we become a one-trick pony, as adults, it shows up, but it shows up for these kids too. So that's definitely one thing I do preach. What would you say as far as you handling that injury, whether it's the recovery, the physical rehab, Was there anything mentally you could have, either you think you did well or you could have done differently to help you with the confidence and coming back from it?
Yeah, I think, mentally, you have to trust yourself. You have to understand opinions are going to happen, good or bad, from people, and it's what you truly believe in yourself, and recognize the accountability you're doing. But I think the biggest thing for me was I mentally did enough, but not more than enough. And, I did the same as what everybody else was doing, but I wasn't the same as everybody else. I was a guy who was injured and expected to be a difference maker. And so enough wasn't good enough. I needed to do more. I needed to prioritize the fact that, I hung out and, I met a lot of celebrities and kept my mind busy that way when probably I should have been more focused on, because my whole season was done. Like, I wasn't playing that year. So it was all rehab and trying to get through every day. And Andy Murray didn't want the injured guys around the players on game days or seen at the practice rink. You could see them after when you're outside the rink, but didn't want you around them until after the game. And so you're a young guy by yourself. So I seeked that comfort and hanging out with other people, and I didn't get caught up in anything crazy or anything like that. But I went to lots of events and kept busy that way, instead of, what can I do to better myself and make sure my mind is right, instead of just distracting it.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Episode 171 is sponsored by Aulin Hockey. Dominate the ice with performance-driven, cut-resistant gear built for elite players. Stay dry, stay sharp, and feel every stride with Aulin base layers and Blade Pro skate socks, the most comfortable cut-resistant socks in the game. Unmatched protection, ultimate comfort, and zero compromise. Thank you to Aulin for helping to outfit the UMH 68 players with serious gear so they can gear up and perform better. Aulin has been a fantastic sponsor for Up My Hockey. I love their gear. It's I wear it. My boys wear it. It's comfortable. It's easy. It's not heavy. It's super light. It dries out quickly, and it really provides that level of comfort and safety, really, that your players need. So if you don't have a base layer right now, or if you're considering a new one, I highly recommend you checking out the Aulin product line. That's AYCANE, and yeah, their socks and their base layers are absolutely fantastic, as is their apparel. First person experience with it. I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it. So check out Aulin. They are now the CHL sponsor for all WHL players. Will be wearing their base layers. Pretty exciting for some of these younger players who came to the UMH 68 to receive an Aulin base layer and know they're wearing what their junior stars are also wearing. So check it out. You can use the UMH code too, UMH 2026, for 25% off your next order. Once again, UMH 2026 for 25% off the absolute best base layers and socks in the game. So go visit Aulin now. Thank you, Aulin, for being an Up My Hockey sponsor.
Yeah, a lot of. Being mindset. A lot of people think that I coach or teach visualization, and I really don't. I think it's like a really small part of even what I talk about. For me, it was more daydreaming. Like, I did visualize a lot, but it wasn't like a practice. It was just because I freaking loved it, and I would see myself scoring goals, or I would see myself doing whatever when I was going to bed. Like, it was just kind of part of being bored. We didn't have a phone in front of your face all the time. You would run this mental imagery, as people would call it now, right? But I do think it's effective in some scenarios, and definitely in injury recovery. Like, I think if people do use it and see themselves being strong, see themselves in situations where they're not handicapped from their injury, and kind of building that resiliency, that internal, taking away the questions, I guess. Take away as many questions as you can before you're back in the battle. Like, how are you going to be when you recover? And there is some value to that for sure. And definitely when you were injured, there wasn't much talk of that, but that might have been something that could have helped you as well in that recovery process.
Yeah, and I think in the modern day athletes, like, you see McDavid when he had his bad knee injury, just a team of people behind him to help him stay, focused. Whereas with me, it was like, okay, you'll see the therapist, and then we're going to have you. Like, the strength coach wasn't in there working out with me. I was just in there. He gave me a program in there by myself, and a couple other injured guys, and it's not like that anymore. It's like they're there to be there for you and make sure you're good and that you're getting the proper workout in and nutrition and all that stuff. So, for me, it was more, I guess, accountability, even though I was young, on navigating and researching on what could I do to make sure I'm the best version of myself as a hockey player and as a person for when I'm ready to play again.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always an opportunity there. Is like trying to reframe that, because whatever that opportunity could have been, whether it was to work on your conditioning or work on your leg strength or your explosiveness or something that you could do instead of something that you can't do. I think a lot of times we get caught up in what we can't do, and that's where we're focused and we get down. But there might be an opportunity there that's exactly what you need. I don't mean you in particular, but for anyone out there who's injured, right? I want to shift gears just quickly, because you talked about skill development and being a skill coach and for me, I think that there's a mindset around that. Especially for players that can, but I don't know, let's say pick up a new skill. I'm not saying that's what you're actually doing. You're probably refining stuff. You're doing details on stuff. But can you speak to that when you see somebody who is able to grasp something, is able to understand the process of learning, which I think is an important aspect, and how that can be a differentiator for players when it comes to getting better?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I see as a skills coach is so I try and base my skills a lot on, being able to execute things with your head up, and I put kids in a lot of decision-making situations to understand when to execute skills. But is the thing that separates the kids that grasp it and the kids that don't, is I'm a big believer there's three personalities. There's the kids that just have it and can do it. There's the kids that are afraid to get uncomfortable, so they'll never do it. And then there's the kids that talk too much about how good they are, so they don't put in the effort because they don't want people to see they can't do it. So the ones who do really well at it, outside the gifted ones, are the kids who sponge everything you're saying, but then aren't afraid of failure. So they don't care what anybody else thinks. They're not competing with anybody else. They just want to master what you're teaching as quickly as they can, not as quickly as the other person can, but as quickly as they can. And then that allows me, once they get it, now I can put them in the decision-making situation where now they have to figure out when to use it, when not to use it. And, also do it the right way. Like the kids there's a lot of players who learn skills, but their head's down, or they learn a skill and their knees aren't bent, or they're not in the hockey position. And it's like, well, now we're trying to translate that, where I'm a big believer. If I'm teaching you a skill, I need to teach it to you so that if it's not there and you're attempting it, you can still get out of it. And so if you're teaching a toe drag and your knees aren't bent, well, can you push out of it if it doesn't work, or are you stuck there? Like it's understanding that side. And so the kids that aren't afraid to do the stuff that hurts a little bit more by being in a low position or wanting to execute it and then be explosive to come out of it, or have their head up and not worry about losing the puck. Those are the kids that are going to separate themselves, because there's so much skill nowadays, but it's very eyes down, Instagram, sensationalized. And I got a buddy who's that Swaggy P Elevate 02 guy, who can do all this stuff, but he can still also do everything else. Like he can think the game fast, he can make plays, and then when he wants to add his little bit of magic there, he can do that. And too many kids now focus on the dessert instead of the dinner. And I always say, we're dinner before dessert. So let's get the basics, work on skating, the stuff that's boring. And then we'll get into the fun stuff, because you got to do what's good for you first, and then you get your treats after. And it's the hardest part with kids now is they chase the viral instead of being a hockey player. And so the kids that get it and the kids that want to learn, like I'm not teaching kids Michigans. If they want to learn that, they can do it in their driveway and then bring it for the first few minutes of practice or whatever, if that's something they want to work on. I used to make a kick pass because it would open up another lane to make a pass. I'll teach that stuff. I'll teach things like that. But I want kids to recognize, if you're a home builder, you start with a hammer and nails. You don't go buy big machinery and then I teach the basics, but then I challenge the eyes up, the scanning, decision making, and then playing fast to create separation. And so the kids that buy in are the kids that move their feet out of a turn, have their head up, not afraid to lose the puck. And so I think the best message for parents and kids is get uncomfortable. You hear people say it all the time, be comfortable getting uncomfortable. And if you can have, leave your ego at the door and just go out there and not be afraid to fail, it's important. And one of the quotes I heard when I was young is, a fault does not lie when failing when trying. A fault only lies when failing to try. And it's basically telling you, if you don't try, you failed. But if you try and fail, you still have a chance. And so as long as you learn from it. And so put yourself in those positions. Don't just shy away from them like a lot of kids do nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and to me, that's a mindset. Like that's mindset. Like if you can reprogram or give them a reason to reprogram themselves about what that means, right? Like to recognize in themselves that in this moment, I usually quit or I stop or I don't go as hard. And now I'm going to reconnect that with, no, this is my moment, right? This is actually me training. It's more important than the toe drag I'm learning. This is like about me, and this is about something that might hold me back in anything else. And now all of a sudden there's a new opportunity there for them to make a new decision. And like I see it all, like even last night, I mean, recency bias, but I love that you talk about the fundamentals. Like to me, it's such a race, it seems like, with all these skills practices that people are trying to throw more cones on the ice and more this and more that, and nobody's really doing, like as you say, like the foundational stuff that really needs to be done. And so all I did was I was going to do some edge stuff with them in transitions and trying to get them to use both edges on transitions, right, and use both feet, and also exploring on their blade, the difference between toes and heels, and how we utilize that, right, throughout different turns and stuff, and having access to them when you want. And so all I was doing is having them like stand up on their toes and like balance, and stand up on their heels and balance, and then switch feet and maybe turn, and like just doing some different things, stationary relatively, and just having them see if they can do it. And so like some of the kids, and that's kind of to your point, like they're wired in the way, like, first of all, none of them could do it, right? Because they've never been asked to do it before. But then the kids that couldn't quite get it great, or wherever they're at in the spectrum, like they would keep going, right? They would keep going with what I just gave them an example of. And some of them that were like horrific at it would try 3 times and then stop there and look at me. And I'm like, what are you looking at me for right now? Like, why would you look at me without trying this? Like, you should be trying this until you get it, right? Like, but there's that natural response for some kids that it is uncomfortable, or I'm not good at it, or I'm looking across the circle and somebody's better, so now I'm exposing myself, so now I'm just going to stop. Yeah. And like, that's the death of progress, of course, right there.
Oh yeah. And it's too worrying about if kids just trusted that, you might be a better skater than them, but you need to work more at this, and they might be better at this. But as long as you're doing it, if you continue to do it, you're going to go like this. Well, the other person stays like this, or go backwards. And it's too much of a comparison at a young age. And like some kids are really gifted, and some aren't. And like we always talk about, everybody's journey is different. So if you're willing to buy in and sponge what you're learning, and try and execute and learn and master things as you go through it, and you're going to be better off than the one that thinks they know everything.
Yeah, well, again, and talk about the life skill associated with that. Like I always say, if vehicles of hockey for us to teach that, like if that's what they take away from working with you or working with me or from the game itself is that, I don't quit. I continue to try. I'm willing to put myself in situations that are uncomfortable. My goal and my dreams matter more than other people's opinions. We've done a great job with that. And that's really the wagon that I try and hitch my stuff to is, it works. It definitely works to help you be the best hockey player you can be and make those dreams come true. But the substack of that whole thing is it works everywhere.
and that's the truth. And the way I coach is a lot of the messages I relate to kids have nothing to do with hockey outside of my experiences, but a lot of it is I want you guys to scan the ice, look around, like if I gave you $10 in a candy store, you're going to look at everything. You're not just going to look straight ahead. So
yeah,
that's what they relate to. They don't know enough about hockey to pump all this stuff into their head. Whereas when you can relate it to things they do and like, then they grasp it. And as a coach too, if you show humility, like I fall all the time when I'm demoing stuff. I would say to the kids, look, 16-year pro career, I still fall down, but I fall down because I want to show you how I want you to do it. Like you have to get low. And if you don't get low, you'll never know how low you can actually get. So
I love it. I fell last night too, and I did the exact same thing. I was doing that transition skate, and I was too far on my heels, right, going forwards, which made a terrible edge. Like all this ice blew up. I fell over, and I was like, "There you go." I'm the best skater here, and I just screwed it up. You know what I mean? And this is a telltale sign of what I did wrong. Like it's right here for me. So I explained that to them. Like what your edges look like when you make a mistake. Your body position is off, and I fall all the time. One, because I'm trying too. Like I actually am trying out there,
That was the best thing about the Olympic final. As much as, I wanted to see Canada win, the same mistakes kids make that parents go crazy about, those best players in the world made in that game.
Yeah.
Like it happens, and it happens to the best in the world. So just understand that if it's consistent, obviously, then you got to question it, but mistakes happen. It's supposed to happen. As long as the kids work hard to fix the mistake, then body language, then everyone should be fine.
I know you got to go and pick up your kids, so I have to ask these questions. I was looking at your DB. I saw some good buddies of mine that you played with. So I'm going to give you three names, and you got to give me your best story from one of them. All right. So we're going with Steve Kelly, we're going with Eric Healy, and we're going with Trent Whitfield. So you get to choose.
Oh yeah, those are actually all three guys that were probably Eric Healy and Steve Kelly were my line mates my first year pro, and then Witter I played with during the lockout year. He was the captain and just unbelievable guy. It's funny, like Eric Healy led the league in points that year. He was a guy who probably didn't take very good care of himself. But he always found a way to score goals and produce and have fun with it. But I'll talk about Steve Kelly. So obviously everybody called him Killer. He was a guy who played the game hard, had some skill, and led by example. But it's more of an embarrassing story for myself. But I remember he hosted a Thanksgiving dinner. And I didn't know that Thanksgiving was that huge in the States. And so everything was closed. I was a rookie. I was 19 or just turned 20. And I was always raised, you have to bring something. And so my mom used to make orange Julius for us for breakfast all the time, or for a treat or whatever. And so I went to the convenience store and I couldn't find anything that would be like, outside of chips or whatever. So I was like, oh, you know what? I got a blender at home. I'll bring the ingredients. I'll just make a bunch of orange Julius's for everybody. When, there's wine and all this other stuff. And I get there and Steve Kelly's like, really? I was like, pardon? He goes, orange Julius? Like ice cream and frozen orange juice? There's a bunch of grown-ups here. Eh? He's like, not everybody's here. But he was great. He took me under his wing, his family was really good to me back then. But yeah, 3 guys, really good guys. You know, like it's a lot of fun. Probably some stories that I involve parties and stuff that are good for a laugh. But
no, that's awesome. Yeah, those are good guys. Steven Heels or Killer and Heels. They were teammates of mine in Germany. So they stuck together, those two, on a couple different teams, and they were obviously good buddies and lots of laughs with those two for sure. And obviously, yeah, really, really good hockey players, both of them in their own right. And then Trent and I played for 2 or 3 seasons in Spokane together. So I never played with him at pro, but played with him a lot in Spokane. He was a year younger than me and kind of took him under his wing a little bit for a while there. And it's awesome to see him having success. And, the career that he had even was pretty special. So really proud of what he was able to accomplish.
Yeah, all really good guys, all brought different styles of leadership, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, man. I'll let you go get your kids. Great conversation. Appreciate you sharing and appreciate what you're doing now. And obviously, like I told you before, I mean, really love that you're able to come out to the 68 and share some of that experience and with the up and coming generation. And obviously, that's my way of trying to do what's right with hockey. Try and keep these kids, what to be grateful for, what to be passionate about, and how to pursue their dreams on their terms. And I think you did an awesome job of reflecting that sentiment. And thanks for being you and doing what you do.
Yeah, likewise. Always honored to be part of that stuff, and I have a ton of respect for what you're doing and the career you had, and just the the opportunity you give these kids to learn from a bunch of different voices. So,
well, have a great day. Thanks again for being here, and I know we'll talk offline. So, cheers.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much for being here for episode 171 with Jared Aulin. Once again, just a great interview. Jared's super insightful and thoughtful with everything he provides, and his own personal journey is one that needed to be shared on this podcast, as I think it aligns with all things Up My Hockey. There will be trials and tribulations. There will be struggles, even for the top players. There are things that people go through, and without mindset and without a good support cast and without really understanding what you can control, the road can be hard. The road's hard enough. So whether you're at the top of your age group right now or whether you're somewhere in the middle, mindset is something that's going to give you the edge to reach your potential and to strive and achieve those goals and dreams that you want. So Jared, thank you so much for your insight and sharing your experience, and I know that all my listeners value the conversation that we just had. So rock and roll, everybody. Make sure you are taking care of you, taking care of your mindset, working on it like it is a skill and not something that is out of your control, because it is within your control. It is something that we can practice. It's something we can get better at. And in that process, you will elevate your game as well. So until next time, play hard and keep your head up.